I am a recovering codependent, and this is my story of how I overcame it. If you have ever been in an abusive, toxic relationship with a narcissist or are currently struggling with codependency, that this video makes you feel seen and loved and allows you to take the first step towards healing. There was a point in my life where I didn't want to admit that I was a codependent. I chalked it up to me just being a good, kind, empathetic person with just a slight need to try to control everything and everyone around me. I needed to control because that was the only way I felt safe. When people would describe me, they would just say, "Oh, Devin, she's nice," and that's it. No flavor, no personality. Oh wait, yeah, I did have a personality. It was whoever I was around at the time. I mimicked other people's personalities. I was a giver more than a taker, and I did everything in my power to make sure that everyone around me liked me, and I tiptoed around people so that way I wouldn't trigger them or make them mad at me. And as you could probably guess, narcissists love me. I attract them like moths to a flame. I had a habit of meeting guys online. I was too socially awkward, introverted, and self-conscious to ever meet a guy in person. So I often went online a lot to talk to random strangers in my area. And there was this one guy who I had met, Kyle, beautiful guy, blue eyes, dark hair, charismatic, charming, my dream guy, a narcissist. So me and him talked for a few weeks online, just chatting about our life, our dreams, and yes, I was already in love with him after the first couple of days, as codependents tend to fall in love pretty quickly. In love with the idea of a person's potential. Especially if that person is good at love bombing, which he was. Well, after a few weeks of talking to him, we decided to meet up at the mall. And at the time, I didn't have a car, and my parents had to drive me around. But I couldn't tell my parents that I was wanting to meet up with some random guy that I met online in the middle of the mall. They'd be so disappointed and angry at me if I did. So I lied to my parents and told them I was just meeting up with my girlfriend from one of my classes. So I met up with Kyle at the mall, and we talked. Got to know each other a little bit more. And I learned that Kyle had a pacemaker. And if you're unsure of what a pacemaker is, it's essentially a battery-powered device for people that have a heart that beats too slowly. And it basically causes people to have faint spells. Normally, older people use pacemakers, but for some reason, an 18-year-old guy had a pacemaker. Weird, I know. But I didn't question it. I was in love. So after a few months, weird things started happening in our relationship. At first, he was so kind and loving, always said the right things, always did the right things, always made sure to compliment me and validate me, you know. And then later on, he started emotionally abusing me. But he would do it in very slick ways. For example, we were in the pool together, and he was doing things where he was squirting water out of his hand. And he was showing me how to do it, and for some reason, I don't know, I wasn't able to do it. And he turned to me and he looked me in my face with a smile and said, "You're not really good at anything. You can't do anything right." How did he know to say that? How did he know that was my biggest insecurity? Me not being enough. Because the narcissist will use your weaknesses against you for their own personal gain. They will learn everything about you and act like they are there to help you, all so they can throw it back in your face later. It hurt. And he knew it hurt. He wanted to break me, break my spirit, break the self-worth that I never really had to begin with. And he succeeded for a while, but I didn't care. I was in love. I needed to save Kyle because Kyle had a rough upbringing. He didn't have a car or a job. He told me that he grew up in an abusive household and he suffered from mental illness and he had a physical condition with his heart. I had to save him. He needed me. And even though he was emotionally abusing me, it was because he had a rough upbringing. He had a hard life. Nobody was there for him except me. Cut him some slack. He is doing the best he can. Us codependents also tend to make excuses for people's poor actions against us because we don't feel worthy to receive any kind of love. But anyways, there was one day that we were just relaxing at my house. He turned to me and said that in a year he will have to get surgery so that way he could get his pacemaker battery replaced because eventually the battery will go out and then his heart will stop beating. But he wasn't going to do the surgery. He didn't want to do the surgery because he didn't want to be here on this earth anymore. My own heart sank. I was in love with this guy. And now he was telling me that he doesn't want to go through with a surgery that could literally save his life. So me, being me, tried everything in my power to try to help him, to save him, to try to get him to go through with the surgery. And I did. And I did that by helping him get his life together. So I helped him get a job, even though I didn't have a job myself. I helped him get a car, even though I had no car. bringing him closer to God, even though my relationship with God was non-existent. I was failing my classes at school because my focus was 100% on him. I was building a man that I wasn't even officially in a relationship with, trying to save a man who didn't want to be saved, a man that didn't need to be saved. And the thing about codependence, we often like to be with broken people because then we don't have to deal with our own brokenness or even admit that we are broken. It's always the other person's problem and you get to be the savior. But yes, he loved the attention I was giving him, and I loved that I was fulfilling him, filling his cup while mine ran empty. I brought him to my church, and eventually he told me that he wanted to be baptized, and I was so excited because he is building his relationship with Christ. He was going to Bible study and reading his Bible, and he changed his mind and decided that he was going to do the surgery to get his pacemaker replaced, and that he was so grateful that I came into his life to help him. I was saving him. I felt fulfilled. So the day comes where he is going to be baptized, and we decided to drive separately. So I was sitting in the pew, waiting for him. Waiting. And eventually the pastor comes over to me and is like, "Where is Kyle? It's time for him to be baptized." And me, sitting there so embarrassed in front of the church because it's like, this is my church. This is my family. I've been going to this church since I was 12 years old, and now you are ghosting me in front of all of them. Where are you, Kyle? I was texting him, calling him, and he was refusing to pick up. Long story short, Kyle never showed up. He never planned to show up. It was all a show. A show that he was the one in control. That he didn't want to be saved by me, but he was still going to watch me drown while I try to keep his head above water. So I leave church, so embarrassed, and I drive to his apartment to see him, and he is asleep in his bed. And when I walk into his apartment, he just looked at me. No apology, no empathy, nothing. And he started denying ever needing to be there, saying he forgot, saying he changed his mind, saying he decided against it, but he never planned on showing up. He didn't care that he was hurting me, that he hurt me, that he was leading me on, that he was trying to better his life. He wanted me to know that I was failing at being his savior, that I wasn't capable of anything. So we were arguing, going back and forth, and all of a sudden he passed out on the floor, fainted. He fainted a lot, typically during times when I caught him in lies. See, remember I told you that people that wear pacemakers have a tendency to faint? Well, he used that to his advantage. He would pretend to faint or pretend to be in pain to get out of tough situations when he ran out of lies. So he's on the floor, passed out, and I had to hurry up and get him to the hospital. And once we got to the hospital, the doctor said he was fine, nothing wrong with him. But me, I had completely forgotten about earlier. I had completely forgot that he had ghosted me. I was just concerned about him, making sure that he was okay. I didn't want him to be mad at me. He didn't mean it. He really just slept in on accident. He'll eventually get baptized, right? I just need to help him a little more, but not push him too much so that way he doesn't leave me. I just need to try harder to get him to see his potential. I should word things in a way that he understands, but don't push him too much because I don't want to make him mad. It was my fault that he was failing. He was right. I really can't do anything right. So our relationship continued on like this for a few months. The lying, the fainting, the threats of offing himself and not getting the pacemaker surgery, him pretending to be in pain to get sympathy from me helping him get a job, him easily getting that job because, he is just so charming and manipulated the manager into thinking he was more qualified than he really was. Then him manipulating my mom, so my mom started driving him to said job and us buying him groceries and clothes. And then him getting fired from that job for stealing weapons. This guy was crazy, and I was crazy in love. In love with his potential, in love with what he could be, in love with what I could make him into. Because my life was terrible, but I would much rather focus on his. Eventually I came to my senses, and I eventually decided to go behind his back and reach out to his family to get more information on how to help him. But from what his mom told me, that everything he told me was a lie, in that he is a diagnosed narcissist and sociopath and has the capability to manipulate, use, and hurt a lot of people and animals. I'm not even sure to this day if the pacemaker was real. Now, you might be thinking one or two things. One, wow, I am a codependent myself, and listening to another codependent tell their story makes me think about how absolutely insane it is to live life like this. Or two, what made me come to my senses with Kyle? How did I break this curse of being codependent? Well, I'll tell you first. Don't think that I am just this victim or great person for helping him get on his feet, for being so kind and loving. No, quite the opposite. My actions were very selfish, and it didn't stop with Kyle. It continued on for years with other relationships, friendships, until I broke. Until I was left with nothing. Me trying to put the weight of the world onto my shoulders eventually crushed me. And then I was left with nothing. I was broken into pieces, and I was left alone to pick up these pieces on my own. And I was left with no choice but to change. And now I am here. So how did I get here? Well, first, understand and know that this isn't going to be some really quick fix. You have been operating like this for a long time. This is a lot of trauma, childhood trauma. And one video is not going to change that, but I hope it will help you to take the first step. So first, acknowledge that there is an issue. Acknowledging that this isn't the way to live life, that whatever it is that you are doing just isn't working. And that starts with trusting. It starts with trusting your intuition. It's right. It's always right. I know you have a hard time trusting that voice in your mind, and you'd much rather listen to the voice of someone else's. But when I say your intuition is right, it is right. And yes, I am talking to you. You can go and ask everyone in the world about their opinions, about what you should do. Ask them for directions on the path that you should take. But they don't know. Only you know. Not your parents, your friends, your pastors, your teachers, the random strangers you ask advice for online. Only you. So stop asking people for directions to places they have never been before. To places they will never go. We're all pioneers walking through life, doing the best we can. And this is our first time in this game called life. And you are asking people on how to play this game that they don't even know how to play themselves. Asking people for the rules of the game, and they're making the rules up as they go along. You trusting everyone else's opinions but your own. If you don't know what to do next, you don't need to seek more answers, but accept the ones you've already been given. The next step on your path is right in front of your feet. You just have to stop looking outward for the answers and look inward. Dig the answers out from beneath your people-pleasing, fear of saying no, need to control, and lack of boundaries, and begin. The answer lives in you. Next is give the person the benefit of the doubt. Not because they deserve it, but because I deserve it. I don't deserve to be thinking that everyone doesn't like me or that everyone is ignoring me. I don't deserve to be thinking these negative thoughts. So give people the benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, they probably didn't mean it that way. Or they are probably just busy, which is why they haven't texted me back. What if I assumed I am loved, respected, wanted, and cared for? Next is, it's time you become self-obsessed. Because a lot of codependents don't even know what self-obsession is. Even saying self-obsessed, so that's such a bad word in our dictionary. Our house is a mess, but we would much rather go to someone else's house and clean theirs over our own. It is time that you become absolutely obsessed with yourself in every possible way. You have given your blood, sweat, and tears to these toxic people that don't deserve it. But you won't even give it to yourself, the person you have to go to bed with, the person you see every day when you look in the mirror. It's time you become completely in love with yourself. People can call me selfish. I don't care. Because people don't know what I had to go through to get to this point. I had to abandon everything about myself to please other people. So by them saying I'm selfish, thank you. That's a compliment. It took me a long time to get here. Stop giving so much of yourself. Stop pouring so much into other people that give nothing back. Stop trying to fit yourself into places that you are not meant to fit in. Trying to fit into your friend groups, trying to fit in with your coworkers at work, trying to be understood by your family, trying to shape yourself to fit into their boxes, and giving your energy to things that are not working. Give your energy to things that are working. Give it to the people who already love you. To the places and environments that make you feel like an actual human being, to the people who make you a priority. Next is other people will see you the way they intend to. The same way you gloss over other people's flaws, the same way you were hell-bent on getting that terrible man to love you, the same way you make excuses for that toxic person in your life. People will see you the way they intend to, but none of that matters. All that matters is how you see yourself, and if you like the person you see when you look in the mirror. And if you don't like the person you see in the mirror, it's time to change. You will no longer participate in your own suffering. You will no longer shy away from making others uncomfortable. You will learn to say no and let that be a full sentence. Give yourself everything you think you need from others. If you have nobody that loves you, you will love yourself. If you have no friends, you will be your only friend. If your boss doesn't see your potential, you will see your potential, and you will walk away and find a place that does. If nobody is loyal to you, you will be your most loyal companion. Stop turning your back on yourself in order to fix other people because you are too scared to face the trauma that was inflicted on you. From this point on, you are on your own side. You are on your own team. And if they want to be on your team, they should only be bringing peace, joy, and happiness onto that team. They should be the ones on the sidelines cheering you on. You are no longer a cheerleader in this game called life. You are no longer a coach. You are the quarterback. You are the all-star. It's time for you to step out and be the one to shine. Let people be pissed at you. Let them be mad. If you say no, if you set a boundary and they get mad, let them get mad. Let them yell and fuss and get angry at you. It doesn't matter. You do not need to protect people from feeling uncomfortable. You do not need to be the one to make them feel better. You don't need to use a certain tone of voice so that way they don't feel attacked. Say it, and say it with your chest. Now, this advice is not for those in an abusive relationship, so don't take this if you are. But if you are not in an abusive relationship, let people be uncomfortable. Let them be mad at you. You cannot control other people's emotions and their reactions to you making them feel uncomfortable because they are the ones who crossed the line. You can still be humble and calm and still set boundaries and not tolerate disrespect. Next is let go of control. Let go of this need to control. There is power in not knowing. Not knowing what comes next, not knowing what the door leads to, not knowing all the answers, not knowing if this person really needs you or likes you, not knowing if that person is mad at you or not. When you don't know what is next, you open the door to a realm of infinite potential. Instead of trying to make sure everything is perfect, making sure everything is where it needs to be, making sure everyone is okay and safe, you will start to plan for happiness, freedom, and peace. You will start to live in the now, in the present moment, and start taking life for what it is. When you don't know what is next, you will start to create space between what you previously imagined and what you were truly meant for. Let go of this person. Let that person be who they are, and focus on yourself. Nurture yourself. Parent yourself, because unfortunately you didn't get any of that as a child. You didn't get a parent. You were the parent to your parents. You had to make your mom and dad happy instead of them prioritizing you, the child. That was not your burden to take. That was not your trial. That was not your fight. You were the child. Go back to that child. Go back to your childhood and sit and ask yourself, ask your little self, what is it that you need? I am an adult now. What can I do for you? I am here. And when you make excuses for this person, when you make excuses for other people, when you turn your back on yourself to fix this person, you are betraying your younger self. Once again, your younger self is being put on the back burner while you go out to fix other people. Once again, your younger self is coming second. When are you going to put that little girl first? When are you going to put that little boy first? When are they going to come first? It's time you put yourself first for once in your life. You will be surprised at how things will work out exactly how you need them to, exactly when you need them. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late, just right. The universe, God, will take care of you. You will be taken care of, no matter where you find yourself.